All right, I'd like to call this evening's meeting to order. Ms. Hammers, please take roll.
Okay. Let's see. We have, hold on just a minute. McFarland,
Aye. Here.
Miller,
Present.
Ringer,
Present.
Zimmers.
Present.
That is 4 present currently.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Yes, I motion to adjourn to executive session to consider the following matters: the appointment, employment, or dismissal of employees, 5 ILCS 120-2 C1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Hammers, could you please take the roll for the vote?
Yes. Let's see. McFarland,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Ringer,
Aye.
Zimmers.
Aye.
That is 4 aye votes.
Okay, so now we're going to go into exec, so we need to switch over again.
Yes.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting this evening. Once again, I'm going to repeat what I did the last time. With remote board meeting like we're doing, we only deal with basically the business that is important to what's going on right now. So we cut out board salutes and those types of activities. So I just wanted to make everybody aware. If you were not on this webinar previously, that's kind of how we're doing business. We're just doing business that we have to do on this remote. So I'd like to start by calling order.
In the roll.
Do you want me to call the roll, Mike? Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
roll.
Johnson,
Here.
Mars,
Here.
Mathis,
Here.
McFarland,
Here.
Miller, Ringer,
Present.
Zimmers.
Here.
That is 7 present.
Okay, approval of the agenda 3.1. Like to recommend that the board approves the April 20th, 2020 agenda. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the approval of agenda, please.
Second.
Thank you. Second, okay. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Mars,
Aye.
Mathis,
Aye.
McFarland,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Ringer,
Aye.
Zimmers,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
That is 7 aye votes.
Okay, 4.1, President's comments. Public comments will occur during the public comments portion of the meeting. If you are interested in addressing the board, please register to participate in the webinar. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time tonight because I know the superintendent has several things she probably needs to talk about, but I just want to repeat what I did the last time. I would really like to thank everybody that is stepping up, not only in the school district, but also the community, to assist our students and our families in learning that's taking place remotely. The teachers, I'd really like to commend you for making more and more contacts every day with your students. We really appreciate the work you're doing with our kids. Having said that, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, what we would like to do is just go over some of the things that have been happening with our day-to-day operations. First and foremost, we have opened up another site to make lunches and breakfasts at Enos Elementary School, and that's a prep site for all of our remote buses that are going out and delivering to our 8 sites. Last week, we were down a little bit from where we were before spring break, but it started to pick up as the week went forward. We still passed out over 10,000 lunch and breakfast combos last week. And we also today had a really great day. So I think it's picking back up and people are hearing that we're back and doing these things again. I do want to tell you that we did $53,000 of sales at McDonald's during that they were actually given in free food during spring break. Thanks to McGraw Enterprises for them reaching out to us, having this idea and making it available during our time off during spring break. That really helped our cafeteria workers have a reboot, and then also gave them a chance to restock our kitchens and things that we needed to do. We are going to be able to serve foods for the remainder of the school year as long as we're able to get the food supply as we have been. Things will still be open and a go. Right now, we are getting free produce from the DOD. And we're working on that until, Illinois loses money. Hopefully they won't. And we'll continue to have produce as well as the commodity items that we continue to get throughout this time. We did get our money for summertime feeding, so we'll be looking and seeing about how we can set up summertime feeding as well, just like we always do. Generally, we have those sites at all of our summer programs, as well as with Camp Compass and the Urban League and different locations across the city. So we will continue to plan ahead as if everything is a go, and if it's not, we'll figure out a different way to do our summer food programs this year. We are starting to close down our kitchens at this time. All of our regular kitchens were still open and had frozen food in them. So we're going around and doing that clean out and making sure that we're storing that food either for another time or to utilize now or into the summer. MJ Kellner is working with us to store that food and then deliver it out where it is needed. But we will have to close down our kitchens now that we know the school year is out. Big thank you to the Central Illinois Food Bank, Pam Militaris and Bob Bartolozzi. We actually had several kind of sacks of groceries, bags of apples, gallons of milk that went out to our families over break as well. We had 125 that went out of Jane Addams. 266 packets were passed out at Washington Middle School. And we used the Starbucks location at the corner of Dirksen Parkway there, and it went for 100 different meals were passed out there for a total of 491. And First Student still is working hard to provide drivers, and they've also done a complete cleaning of all of their fleet at this time. And those buses have been sort of parked over to the side and will be untouched until we need to use them for our students. Later on tonight, you will vote on the remote learning plan switchover. We do have to suspend a couple of our current board policies so that we can put our remote learning education plan in place. And so we'll do that later tonight in our resolutions. But this is a one-stop shop for teachers. It outlines expectations for all employee groups, as well as gives us live links to be able to go for educational resources. And I asked Cherie and Sheila to be on tonight. They were very integral in helping us with that, as well as all of their departments and the people that work alongside them. So we're happy with our program, proud of it, but we also know that as teachers start to use it and as kids start to dig in, we may change things or look and learn how we can do things different. But we think it's a pretty good plan, and we're moving forward with it. And that really is my superintendent's report tonight. If anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those.
Mr. McFarland, did you not have a question about graduation?
I did. I just wanted to see if, well, I know there are plans, but if you can kind of elaborate what you're looking at in terms of handling graduation for this year.
Sure. I talked about this for a long time today. We have a task force that we put in place. We're going to meet on Thursday. We have a lot of ideas that have been submitted and vetted, and we're thinking through. We know that having graduation in a traditional format at the convention center is not going to be able to be done at this time, but we will honor our graduates in one way or the other. So we're looking at a combination of what we can do remotely, what we can do with some of our local business partners that are starting to step up and say, what can we do? We really want to help our seniors. Many of the seniors now are receiving yard signs in their front yard that say, 2020, class of 2020, Springfield High School, class of 2020, Lanphier High School. We're looking at getting those signs for all of our high school seniors. We're also looking at where we could do some sort of a ceremony if some of the restrictions and the stay-at-home order were to be lifted. And so we think that this task force is going to have all the right people on it to really help us think through that, as well as our honors nights, how we're still going to honor our students and pass out their scholarships that they receive and the awards that they win. How we'll do the National Honor Society, things of that nature. All of those are on the table for discussion. And we just had to know whether or not we were out for the rest of the school year. And with that happening Friday, we put the task force in place today, and we'll get that information to you. I would imagine at the next board meeting, I could have a pretty detailed report on where we're at with that, because it's important to get that going and really talk to parents about what they can expect and how they can expect it.
Great, thank you.
Superintendent?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got a question for you. With our breakfast and lunch, are we providing the children milk?
Yes, we are. Every meal has milk, either chocolate or white, their choice.
Okay, and then if they want extra, because you know what's going on with the milk farmers, are we able to do that at this particular point?
We are not passing out extras at this point. So it's for every meal that goes out, there's one milk that goes out with it.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question about that on the meals. When you say low-cost food items, can you send us a list of what you call low-cost food items? They shouldn't be just getting junk.
They're not. They're not, ma'am. It's
and loaded with carbs.
They're not, ma'am. They're our same food lunch. They have to follow all of the same USDA guidelines that we've been following all along with whole grains. And they're the same meals that we've been providing at school throughout the year. And when I say one milk per meal, it's actually one for lunch and one for breakfast, just so you know that they are getting 2 milks, Mr. Mars.
I'll back that up. My kids have been getting those meals, and they are school meals.
Yeah, us too. There's a lot of ham and cheeses, so it's not just junk food that they're getting.
Good.
I had
Okay,
breakfast.
but some of the, well, let me just tell you this. Some of the kids I know from having been there at lunchtime at Lee School don't like those school meals, you know that. So they'll take skip and take two milks, get another milk. So that's their nutrition for the day. So I don't know if anybody asked, can they get an extra milk?
I don't think so, because of the volume that we've been passing out at this time. I can certainly inquire for that during the lunch, regular lunch and regular school time, when we have no worries about, distribution and things of that nature. They usually can buy an extra milk. So I don't know the answer to that, because it's really just drop and go as the cars come by.
Well, it
And it's
sounds like, we've had a lot of people that are participating in the lunches and the breakfast, but surely there's not more than what we would have been serving throughout the normal school day. Is it possible that we could offer some more milks here and there?
I can ask Cheryl.
Okay.
Yeah, I can ask her.
And then the question is, what do they do with the milk that they had stored up for the schools that aren't serving? Did you add that into what you're serving now? The
They
schools where
actually
you're cleaning out the kitchens?
Yeah, anything that was going to be perishable, they brought over to the kitchens that very first week and utilized that. The only thing that was left in the kitchens now were the frozen foods, the boxes of frozen foods that they had.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to discussion items. Discussion of old and new business must be confined to emergency and or time sensitive issues only in relation to COVID-19. So at this point, does anyone under 6.1 have any old business? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 6.2. Does anyone have any new business?
I do have a couple of things. They are time sensitive. I don't know if they fit into the emergency items for discussion, but one that I was curious about is if we have any numbers as to how many teachers are hearing from their students with remote learning. I just know it can be quite a chore to try to follow up with your teachers, especially when you're accessing documents electronically. And I don't know if they've got a good notion, a good idea yet of the students that are participating and those that aren't.
So a part of our remote learning plan asks for teachers to fill out a weekly chart of engagement, and that we had to write a program for that. So our programmers completed that on Friday, and we rolled that out to teachers today. And it's a point and click. So their class list is going to show up, and it's sort of like an attendance form. And they're just going to go down and tell us whether or not the students are engaging. And that could be if they've talked with the family one-on-one, if the student's turning in homework, if the student's getting on the Zoom lessons. It could be a variety of things. And if the answer is no, we've also added a notes column so that the teachers can type in what they know about that family, if they have any concerns about this family being absent and not responding, what they've tried to do to reach that family, so that we can try to do as much as we can to reach out to families and see what kind of assistance they may need. We still have hotspots available. We are passing those out door to door now, the people that didn't come and pick them up last week. So whatever we can do to get them engaged, we will. But I know it goes back to what you just said is a key thing. Families are really faced with a lot of challenges right now. Many of the families are working during the day, and their students may be staying with a relative or an older sibling that's of age to babysit. And it is a stressor on families. So we want to make as many opportunities as possible for students to engage in the work, whether it's during the school day or of the evening.
When did you say that weekly chart got rolled out?
This morning.
This morning. Okay.
We wrote a computer program for it last
Yeah, and I
week.
was just curious. I mean, I'm trying to teach a kindergartner and a second grader, and we're all on borrowed time before I lose their interest. And I'm getting all kinds of stuff from resource teachers, from the primary teachers, and even I have trouble keeping up. So I just wondered how this is going for some other parents.
Yeah, I think it's definitely stressful. We talked to another parent this week that has actually 13 different teachers that are emailing her because she's got more than one child. And so, it's a lot. It's a lot. And we know that, and we're honoring that with our planning, but just hoping that we can make the best of a tough situation.
Do you think we'll have some data by the next board meeting?
Yes, most definitely. You'll have 2 or 3 weeks of data by then.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks. Oh, also the other thing, so the $75 million in bonds that we voted on back in March, I know that we kind of have all been watching the market and its volatility, and undoubtedly we're going to take a bit of a hit with that sales tax revenue. I just wonder if there's any way we can get some kind of numbers from the budget office as to what projected sales tax we're looking to bring in now and how much we can afford to bond, because if we're allowed to bond up to 75 million, I don't know that means we have to bond all 75 million, correct?
Well, actually, at the 2 board meetings ago, you gave me the permission to go ahead and do that. And we did a full study. And at the last board meeting, we discussed so PGA actually came back. It's called PGAV, came back, and we're expecting about probably 7.5, right? Is that, Nate? You're on there. If you can click off.
Yeah, I think they were looking at about a 10 to 20% possible reduction in the next year.
And maybe 15% the following year. So what we do in that is, instead of selling less, we just restructured our debt, and it pushed it out 2 or 3 years on the other end. So you don't really, it may kind of hurt us on our next go around with phase 2 of this plan, but we'll still be able to do phase 1 and just push the debt out and restructure the debt.
Okay, I was just curious.
Payments, lesser payments is what you had said last board meeting.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I was just curious if they could get us into a bind if we end up getting, significantly less than we were planning on.
If I can comment real quickly, we did have a buffer zone built in, a 25% buffer zone built in with the initial projections anyways. So we have a bit of room to work with.
Okay, and that's kind of what PGA said we're looking at.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, since we have you on, Nate, let's go ahead and just do the business report.
And that includes the insurance report, I believe, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, President Zimmers and members of the board. Attached is a summary of revenue and expenditures for the month of March 2020 for the Ed and O&M funds. The cash balances and interest report and the accounts receivable outstanding report are also attached. For March, ed fund revenues were just under 4.9 million. Expenditures totaled 9.7 million, with expenditures exceeding revenues by 4.85 million. The O&M fund revenues were $26,000 and expenditures were 1.13 million. Expenditures exceeded revenues by just under 1.1 million. As of March 31st, the district had a combined cash balance of just under $31 million in the bank for all funds. There were no investment deposits. Earned interest for the month is $48,000 and year-to-date is $928,420. The interest rate on all accounts at March 31st was 1.804%. The total balance of cash and investments as of March 31st, 2019 was 24.03 million for reference purposes. As of April 16th, outstanding state payments totaled 5,826,596, and that schedule is attached. And then finally, county sales tax proceeds received during the month of April for January collections were just under $723,000. Fiscal year to date, county sales tax revenues are $5,851,971. So we're running an average of about $836,000 a month, which has been as expected thus far. Before I move on to the insurance report, are there any questions on that?
Yes, Nate, Tony. With regards to the state payments of 5.8 million, how many months is that behind right now?
That covers 7 months. So we've received our first 7 months of payments.
Okay. And how are we doing with state payments currently?
State payments, we are a little bit more in arrears than we normally would be. I would say that we haven't received our second categorical for transportation and special education. So that's still outstanding. We normally get that right about this time of year. Last year we received, I believe it was around April 17th. So we hope to get that by the end of the month. But that is why that 5.8 million number is so high at this point.
And then with the 722,000 for April, what month is that for? Is that for March, or is there an arrearage on that?
So there are 3 months in arrears. That's for January collections.
January, and that was 722. And what do you say we're averaging on a monthly basis?
836,000.
And we probably won't know where we're at for March and April until probably June, July.
It would be June, July, correct.
Thanks, Nate.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
I don't envy your position.
It's a unique challenge, but I embrace it. All right, assuming there are no other questions, let me move on to the health insurance plan review. Make sure we can get the slides up and running. Can you guys see that on your end?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. The purpose of this presentation is multifold. So today we're going to do a quick review of the current self-insurance. That's our health insurance plan for the staff of District 186. We're going to talk a little bit about the current status of that plan, of the fund itself that's used to fund that plan. We're going to talk about the insurance committee role and the process there too for arriving at a recommendation for renewal this year. We'll actually look at the renewal options and the renewal process and the Blue Cross Blue Shield initial estimates for renewal. I'll also present to you the insurance committee recommendation and their reasoning for that recommendation tonight. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit more about the general financial status of the district and the self-insurance fund as a whole in context of everything that we're talking about tonight. We can move forward to the next slide, please.
Tie in when you finish the health insurance, then you're going to tie in this dental and vision increases too, right? So we need to know total altogether.
I certainly can.
Across the employees.
I will certainly bring up as well. Yes. All right. So this slide just talks about our current, breaks down the benefits of our current self-insurance fund. I won't go through everything individually here, but you'll see on this sheet is all of our current deductibles, out-of-pocket maxes, our copays, including ER and our current drug card and prescription maxes. I would like to note that we do have about 1,870 current subscribers. That's district employees that take our insurance. And with them is another 1,200 or so current spouses and dependents. So roughly 3,100 total individuals on that plan. To recap real quick how our self-insurance fund works, as I'm sure you're aware, our board and our employees contribute premium every month, which we'll talk about here in the next slide. That those premiums go into a special fund that is outside the realm of all of our other funds. So it is not part of the ed or the O&M or any other operating funds. It's a separate, unique fund built just for the purpose of collecting and dispersing our self-insurance fund monies. Again, the board and the employees both contribute premium into that, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And then monthly, Blue Cross Blue Shield does bill the fund directly for our claims and our fees that are incurred for the prior month's activity. Our current plan year runs from June 1st through May 31st of every year. Next slide, please. So you'll see here our current plan premiums. So these are the premiums that you, the board, approved last April of 2019. And so this breaks out here, starting at the top, our board payment per month and annually are $792 and just over $9,500 per subscriber. Our single employees pay $37.32, so that's 4.5% of the total single premium, and that's a contractually obligated amount that we have built into our collective bargaining agreement. So the board pays 95.5% of that. So the annual amount for a single employees, $37, $448 annually. Employee spouse pays $780 and annually $9,400. Employee children pays just under $390 a month and about $4,700 annually. And the family rate is currently just over $1,000 per month, or just over $12,000 annually. Next slide, please. This slide talks a bit more about our current self-insurance fund status. So currently we are at a $3 million cash deficit in our self-insurance fund. That has been the result, you'll see here, of three very poor plan years we've had as far as claims exceeding our amounts coming in from premiums of those amounts individually. So we've had about $5.3 million of claims and fees that have exceeded the district's premiums over plan years 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19. That does not include this year. I'll get more to this year here in a little bit. What that equates to, again, is a $3 million cash shortfall that we've had to fill with line of credit borrowing. So our current borrowing there is just under $3 million. At a 3% interest rate, we pay about $7,500 a month in interest to continue that line for the self-insurance fund in its own right. Plan year 1920 appears to be doing much better than the prior plan years, and so we are nearly at a break-even point this year, claims versus revenues, but we still have 2 months to go. So April and May will be a huge indicator of where we finally end up, and so we'll have more information come June and July as far as how the plan year actually finishes up for us. Our current funding, of course, has not been sufficient to reduce our current cash deficit, so we have seen that deficit obviously increase over the last three years accordingly. And I would like to comment that good fiscal policy would push us into eliminating the deficit in the next 2 to 3 years if possible. This slide talks a bit more about our insurance committee. So I chair an insurance committee of individuals that the composition are made up from the 5 major bargaining unit groups of the district: the SCA, the Wall Charter Education Association, the SEIU Local 15, SPA, and the PTSP. The primary responsibilities for that committee, with regards to insurance renewal, are monitoring and reviewing our health, dental, and vision plans at least 3 to 4 times a year, to make periodic and sound recommendations to the Board of Education of any plan or premium changes based on industry standards, plan performance, and consultant recommendations. And finally, to provide adequate, timely communication with 186 current and potential plan participants. The committee is established as an advisory role to the board only, so the board has any final decision that is to be made every year. Again, I do sit as the chairman of that board, but is very much in an independent role. I plan for and coordinate and facilitate the meetings on behalf of the district. But generally speaking, I do not have a voting access privilege unless there's a tie vote in any of our meetings. Next slide, please. This slide talks more about our current plan year renewals. So every year, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I should echo that we do have Steve Hewell with Troxel as our independent insurance consultant. He's here with us today. So if we have questions either during or after this particular presentation, please feel free to ask. But he's with us here, and so he coordinates with Blue Cross every year to get our renewal rates. This year in February, Blue Cross Blue Shield came back with a total anticipated spend for next plan year of just over $23 million. Our current projected funding level based on the premiums that I showed you previously and the current plan participant numbers would put us at a funding level of about $22 million. When you combine that with a typical Memorial Choice rebate that we get every year of about $280,000, that would give us a projected deficit of $730,000 just for next plan year based on these early numbers from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Again, it's important that I comment these are all pre-COVID figures, so these were underwriting's best guess at our scenario going into next year. But again, we take that to heart as far as using that information to plan accordingly for moving forward and trying to fund this plan to the best of our ability. So the anticipated result going into the end of next year, that would put us through May of 2021 based on these figures alone. And again, this is making no changes to the plan at all, not changing premiums or any plan benefits whatsoever, would essentially increase our current cash deficit up to the $3.7 to $4 million range if these numbers fall true. And again, that would come with continuing borrowing from our line of credit. Interest payments would continue to go up. And I would like to say that the insurance committee has met multiple times in the last few months to discuss options for recommendation to the board. So those options we narrowed down are on the following pages. Let me go through those. The first option is option A is the increase in premiums that was recommended by the committee. And we'll talk more about the specific recommendation here in a few minutes, but this is a 5% flat increase in premiums that would be increased on both the board and the employee side. So that would essentially push our current cost for the board annually increase of about $890,000 to our current budget. The additional costs to our employees are broken out there at the bottom by plan type, but essentially it would be a large cost, obviously, to the family of about $600 more per year, and a similar large cost increase to the employee spouse, as well as the employee children of $468 annually and $234 annually in its own right. However, this plan in particular would give us a projected surplus of next year of about $300,000. So that would whittle away our $3 million current cash deficit by approximately 10% at the end of next plan year. Moving forward to option B. Option B was a non-premium option where we're looking at increasing various deductibles, out-of-pockets, copays, and drug cards in accordance with those numbers there. And what we felt, as Steve Hewell and I were kind of putting together these options for committee review, we felt like we wanted to put in some options that would not be a complete and total burden to the staff, but hopefully ones that would be a smaller step in a direction that would give us some cost savings, but not be overly burdensome to our staff. And this was the least of those plan change options as far as the non-pharmacy piece is concerned. And we'll talk about pharmacy more here in the next few slides. But the projected plan savings, or essentially reduced claims based on these numbers, would bring our costs down by about $619,000 next year alone. On to the next slide. Options C and D begin our pharmacy specific options that we discussed as a committee. Option C are two options that give us some exclusions for proton pump inhibitor and non-sedating antihistamines. The projected savings there is about $56,000. Option D is the same information as option C above, but we'll add an additional member pay the difference on brand name drugs that are available via generic, and the member would pay that difference if that's the best possible option for them. Projected plan savings and reduced claims there would be about $199,000. Moving
What did you
forward
say
to
about that insurance About the medicine, if there's no generic available?
Yeah, Steve, can you echo more on the member pay the difference for Ms. Johnson?
Sure. Essentially, it's just if there, to answer your question, if there's no generic available, this wouldn't apply. This takes application when there's a brand name drug and a generic equivalent. The member then would be responsible for the cost between the brand name and the generic. But in the event that the case that you just said, it doesn't mean the person would be able to get the drug if there's no generic equivalent. Hopefully
Does
that
it mean
answers
they'll
that.
be able to get it?
Yes.
Yes. As long as it's on the drug list, then yes, they can get it.
Okay, so and they would pay the difference between the copay and what the actual cost is?
No, this would be if the only time that there's a difference would be if there was that generic equivalent. They would not have to pay above and beyond if there was no generic equivalent.
Okay.
All right, moving forward to option E. So option E is is a more comprehensive pharmacy option where we're including all of the option D exclusions that we previously talked about. But we go a step further in including some other options on here for prior authorization, step therapy, and a balanced formulary drug list. And so this particular option would give us the greatest plan savings ability of roughly $940,000 of savings on next year. And something we should address is that, we have a wonderful plan currently in place. Typically, this plan is not one that's readily on the market right now for most employers. So a lot of employers you'll see out there, larger employers, will already be at a lot of these steps right now with the balanced formulary drug list. And again, if you have more questions on this, we can certainly defer to those to Steve here at the end of the presentation. Moving forward to the next slide, the insurance committee, their specific recommendation as voted upon actually at our committee meeting in March, were options A and C combined. So again, that's a 5% increase in premium plus of the PPI and the non-state antihistamines exclusion. That would result in about $1.1 million in additional funds paid into our self-insurance fund, as split out there below. Again, about $900,000 to the district, and the rest of that split between employees, ball charter, and then that final piece there, from the other section, is typically retirees that are still on our insurance plan. However, the potential plan year surplus based on these figures alone would be about $350,000. So about a 12% decrease, whittling away, so to speak, of our current cash deficit next year. Moving forward to the next slide. As the chairman of the committee, I wanted to give the committee adequate representation at the board meeting as far as being able to present the reasoning or the whys for the recommendations. So the committee came back to me with about 13 bullet points that I wanted to read to you verbatim, so we're all on the same page. First one is increasing deductibles, out of pockets, pharmacy specialist costs, et cetera, will make it more difficult to hire or keep current employees. Minimizing benefits for all is not a good practice in these difficult times and reflects poorly on the district. Having those who use our insurance pay more contradicts the concept of insurance and spreads out the poor fortune of some over the many. Minimizing plan benefits is equivalent to gambling with people's health. Higher deductibles encourage users to postpone health care until they can afford it. This deferred health care exacerbates the problem as future costs tend to be even greater when treatment is absolutely necessary. Medication oversight from the insurance company is not what is best for patients, but it is what is best for the bottom line, i.e. the district. For 2019, the IRS defines a high deductible plan as any plan with at least $1,350 individual and $2,700 family deductibles. Yearly out-of-pocket cannot be more than $6,750 individual and $13,500 family. Flex reimbursement plan will only allow for $2,750, and an HSA will allow far higher and are structured for high deductible plans. Our plan is not allowed to offer an HSA, thus making most medical costs post-tax and therefore more expensive. Health insurance is a negotiated benefit. Minimizing in plans should not happen unless done formally in collective bargaining. The SCA has proposed during bargaining the creation of a dedicated insurance fund. The district has rejected this proposal over the last two bargaining sessions. It is fiscally responsible to inch the premium up as the price of healthcare continues to rise. A change in plan benefits does not guarantee money in, premium increase does. Subscribers can budget for a premium increase but cannot for a higher deductible. The committee has made substantial plan changes in the past, and the fund did not see the anticipated plan savings expected. And finally, the committee is tasked to recommend what is best for the district members. This is what we feel is best for all. Moving forward, I wanted to present a bit more information on the current financial status of the district. So again, these numbers are moving targets, but I wanted to give you the current Ed Fund projected budget deficits for this year. Now, we are currently working on the amended budget process, which will be presented at the second board meeting in May. And so this is a preliminary look at where we think FY19 and 20 will come. We'll finish out, and then an early look at what we think next year could entail. And so right now in the Ed Fund alone, we're looking at projected budget deficits of the $3.8 million range for both years. I should note that this includes no increase for board and paid insurance premiums for next plan year. However, it'd be remiss of me not to mention that the 1920 increase, so the increase that we or you as the board voted last year, was about a 16.25% increase in our total premium, board paid premium. That amounted to about a $2.5 million infusion of expenditure into our budget for this plan year, or this fiscal year in particular, starting in June of last year. These numbers account for the current average employee salary and wage increases of approximately 4% over both years, 1920 and 21, as negotiated. They do not account at this point for any increase, but also for no increase in our state EBF funding, which was our old general state aid. Again, that we expect that at the very best to remain flat from what we're hearing right now from various organizations. And then finally, this would also include no reductions in other state or federal funding at this point. But all of these are moving targets, and all of these are things that I'm looking very closely at for the board, for the district's benefit moving forward. And we'll get more into that in the next month as we finish up the amended budget. And again, I should also point out that these are all pre-COVID figures as well. So there's a lot more consideration. I'll go into these, but we feel like right now that these numbers are a conservative estimate of those potential deficits both this year and next. Moving to the next slide, just continuing our financial status district-wide again, and just looking at the $2.5 million of additional insurance premium that we've put into the budget this year. We've had another $5+ million in salary and wage and other benefit increases that we've negotiated with all of our bargaining units. Again, that adds up to more than $7.5 million as far as our hit to the budget this year. Of course, that carries forward to next year as well, before we make any other changes this year to premium, if that is your choice. We are looking at potential significant cash flow shortages over the late spring and summer months due to slowed property tax receipts. The timing and extent of that, we just don't know at this point. And FY20 and 21 state funding, again, could be significantly impacted by COVID. And again, we're just in a time of tremendously unprecedented uncertainty. So we're trying to manage, and I think that the best way to do so at this point is trying to keep our costs down and move forward, knowing that we just don't know what's ahead of us. In looking at the self-insurance fund on its own merit, a few things and a few facts that I'd like to present to you that many of you I'm sure already know. The board now pays about $2,200 more per subscriber per year than it did 3 years ago. That's a 30% increase over the last 3 years in the amount that the board is contributing to our self-insurance. The average annual premium increase over the last 15 years is about 8.5%. The last significant change in benefits or cost reduction measure was in 2015. So that was 5 years ago. And at that particular time, we increased our deductibles from the $500 individual and $1,500 family deductibles to what you see on that second or third slide tonight. Again, the committee's goal is to achieve a minimum reserve of 3 months of claim costs. So if you're looking at that in terms of what our current cost is, that would give us an anticipated hopeful reserve down the line of between $5 and $6 million. And again, we're at $3 million in the red currently. I should also point out that neither the 5% premium increase nor benefit changes guarantees a deficit reduction. And all of these figures are purely projection driven and based on claims experience. Okay, moving forward to the next slide. I did want to give the district and Steve an opportunity to chime in on a few of the points that the committee made. So I'm going to defer to Steve here on these few items here. These are three of the points that were in the previous slides. I'd like Steve to chime in on it, please.
Sure. So more so on the first 2 points, kind of a reference point and exactly what those are. The high deductible health plan or a qualified high deductible health plan, in addition to having a higher deductible that's set forth, as you can see on the slide, which was 2019, which was $1,350 for an individual and $2,700 for a family. The unique thing about a qualified high deductible health plan is that the deductible has to be met first. Therefore, you're not going to see, like you do currently with the 186 plan, you're not going to see any type of cost sharing measure until a claimant hits their deductible. The best example I can give of this is if you're going to see a specialist right now, you're going to pay your $45 copay and have your service rendered. With a high deductible health plan, you are going to pay the full cost of that visit, which that varies from everyone, but I can tell you it's more than 45. I've actually done it before just to see what the prices were. It can be anywhere from $200 to $300 until that deductible is met, and then the insurance plan would kick in. Moving into point two, though, it is true that an HSA, which is a health savings account, is a vehicle that someone can use to deposit tax-free dollars for health expenses. The only issue is that an HSA can only be used with a qualified health plan, a high deductible health plan, which, as you can see, the district has copays and everything first. So an HSA is not something that would be able to be added at this time because this is technically not a qualified health plan. I know that in the past, there's been talk about whether a high deductible health plan could be added as an option, and that it is an option out there, but there's a few caveats to it. One thing is with a qualified high deductible health plan, it does assume that the member will take more risk. So generally what we see is, healthier people or people that are more prone to taking a risk will take a plan like that because they're willing to potentially pay less on the premium side because these plans are generally cheaper because they don't believe that they're going to be getting all those claims or going all the way up to the deductible. The other issue with a high deductible health plan, and not an issue, but something that has to be always talked through when you have a plan that District 26 has right now, is that you would expect, or you would potentially think, that the healthier individuals would be moving to, or a good majority of them would be moving to a high deductible health plan because it's cheaper and they won't have as high costs. However, so that's going to reduce the overall funding to the district, while realistically a large percentage of the total claims are still going to be there because those other individuals are still on that other plan. And so there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of operational things with that as well, but I did want to touch on exactly what a high deductible health plan was, and then also what an HSA was. And then the last point that Nate wanted me to touch on was referencing back to 2015 when the other more significant design changes were made. And I should qualify in saying that, design change is somewhat subjective. Everyone's got a different expectation of success. But in the plan year immediately following those plan design changes, so that would have been June 1st of 2015 through May 31st of 2016, total claims after ISL were actually $1.5 million lower than the original projection, which would indicate that those plan design changes did have some considerable impact. And then after that, that's when about 2016 to 2017 is when we started to see the ascent of claims that we're seeing now, where it really became these 2 to 3 bad years where we haven't seen claims like anything like this before. The other part of this too, and we don't really have any idea of knowing what the true impact of this would be, but without those previous design changes, we know for certain that the the total claims that the district would have been responsible for would be much higher right now than they already are, because there would have been less member sharing cost on that end. So just 3 points I know that Nate wanted me to discuss on and just kind of shed some light on as well.
So Steve, were there like a number of people that had really high cost claims? So we experienced 1.5 reduction for that part of it, but then we had a group of people that were really sick.
Yeah, so you do have, that's kind of what's been driving the claims for the district are your high cost claimants, your top dollar. At the very, very top, you've got, it's kind of varied, but there's a few individuals that are really driving, very large claims. And then we look at it going down, kind of the next tier, those within, $50,000 of claims and $25,000 of claims. And there's a considerable amount. Now, when you talk about the very top dollar ones, that's what the ISL is, with individual stop loss. So once an individual goes over $240,000 in claims, Blue Cross pays the rest of that. So that's not going towards the district anymore. So when we look at this, though, and what a design change will be, realistically, you have to kind of take those highest cost claimants out of the equation, because those are the ones that are going to go considerably past the deductible and out of pocket, no matter what those levels are set at.
Okay. Any other questions?
Are there any further questions? Moving forward to the next, I'm sorry.
No, wait.
Go ahead.
Why would Blue Cross pick up the cost over $240,000? What are we paying them to for them to have those funds available?
So so that's called the individual stop loss, or ISL. So that's essentially the way to kind of mitigate anyone getting, if someone has, $3 million in claims, this is the insurance on the insurance that the district pays to ensure that no one goes over, that amount is picked up. Last year, this is the figure I have now, and the ISL is, well, I'll just give it to you for this year. The ISL insurance, which is the individual stop loss, is about $1,493,000. And then there's a second level of stop loss that takes into account the entire group, which is called aggregate stop loss. So if the entire district goes over 125% of the projected claims, anything past that, Blue Cross will also pick up. And for that, for this year, the amount is $8,598. Of course, it's much lower because. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How much was that last figure?
$8,598. And it's much lower, of course. It's much lower, of course, because you don't expect to hit 125% of claims. That would be a really, really catastrophic year. But it's there to try to protect against it. So anything past that, Blue Cross would pick up.
So our cost of the insurance, is that what you said, is $1.5 million for the ISL? Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, that's what we pay on top of paying that $9,000 that was on that first page or second page, whatever Nate showed us. We pay $1.5 million.
Well, it comes out of the pot of money that includes. So yes, that's a fee that's included with our claims. That comes out of the same pot of money that the board and employees pay.
It comes out of the same pot of money. What the employees pay?
Both the board and employees both pay their piece, and so the fees also get paid out of that same fund as the claims.
But if we're already behind, you all are mixing up the cheese and the macaroni over here, and this is not making any sense. My specific question is, where does the $1.5 million come from?
So the board and the employees both pay into the self-insurance fund monthly out of their paychecks and out of the district's budget. That gets put into a separate account. The account pays both the claims and the fees, including the insurance fee, the individual stop loss insurance fee. So Blue Cross bills all of that together on the same bill monthly for us.
Well, see, now you've added some facts in here that you didn't have in when I had my little conference call with you last week. So, I don't know what you are what you aim here, but you didn't say anything about ISLs last week.
We may not have addressed it specifically. That's a possibility. Correct.
So Nate, got a question for you.
Sure, Tony.
Okay, so we're paying about $8,000 to $9,000 a month on interest, and how much are we borrowing on a monthly basis? Are we borrowing on a monthly basis, or are we borrowing, a bulk amount and then paying it out of there? I mean,
But
$8,000 a month that's $100,000 a year.
it is, yes. It's a lot of money. We borrow if our amount going into the pot right now is not enough to cover our Blue Cross bill. So essentially, our current cash balance is near zero. And so if we have a $1.9 million bill from Blue Cross and we only collect about $1.83 million, which is about what we do on a monthly basis, then we go out and we borrow the difference. So that comes out of our line of credit, and that continues in force until we pay it down.
So how much do we have on a line of credit, right? So is this line of credit that we have, is this only for our insurance premiums, or is this a line of credit we're using to cover other expenses?
It can be used. The board approved these lines of credit to be used for whatever purpose we need. So right now it's available to either our district funds or the self-insurance fund.
So if you said we're coming in at 1.83, so we're about $70,000 short. So it's costing us $8,000 a month to borrow $70,000.
I'm just giving, no, that's just an example of all that is. So I'm just giving an example of what we have to do to continue to pay off our claims. If we don't have the cash in the bank, then we have to borrow to cover the difference.
Well, so how much right now, with regards to the interest we're paying on the money owed, the shortfall on the premiums, how much so far for fiscal year? How much are we short on fiscal year this year?
Well, right now we've borrowed about $3 million, just under $3 million.
And so how much is on the line of credit right now?
That's what we owe, $3 million.
And that's all for insurance premiums.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so if you know that you have a certain number of employees, I need to know about that number. The chart that you had with the number of employees on there, you had subscribers and then you had spouse and dependents.
Correct.
So was that, and when you add those two, the spouse and dependents are in addition to the subscribers, right? I got that right?
That's correct. Total numbers are roughly 3,100 people.
3,100 people. So
Yes.
3,100 people, and you know which kind of plan they're in and all that good stuff. So you project to take in approximately how much per year for insurance? Is that
About 22 million.
You got to know at the start of the year when the people are coming in, you got to be pretty close to it.
Yeah. As I presented before, it's about 22 million that we currently pay in between the board and the employees.
Okay, you need an aggregate chart so that we could see this across things, because this is, so it's 20, you're talking 22 million. When you run a
Yes. Yeah, so that number's on slide 6.
How many employees did we have that hit that ISL last year? What's been the trend on that for the last several years?
Last year was 6 employees. And that means that those are the ones who went over 240,000. This year it's projected to be 6 again, if not a little bit greater. All 6 that were in that high, even this comes in with the Blue Cross renewal. They're all expected to be high cost claimants again. I can tell you, and everything, claims have about a 2 to 3 month lag because claims incurred versus claims paid can have a little bit of a difference. But I can already tell you this year, without being a few months back, there's already 2 people this year that have already gone past that, with at least 3, probably 4 more, potentially 5 more that will surpass that again. And that's not taking into account, the other level of people that could easily reach that with a high claim. So it's been pretty high.
And if they go over the 240, there's a good chance they're going to 500 or a million or something like that. So you guys are having a big cost with this as well.
Yeah, and I can just give you a frame of reference for the one person right now. And once again, these claims are delayed, but they already went over almost $180,000 over. And this was obviously, a few months back in terms of reporting. So that's only going to keep going up.
Got it.
If you'll
Okay.
indulge me, I have 2 more slides to go through real quick, and then
Yeah, I want you
we
to
open it up for more questions.
All
Slide number 18. This is an opportunity for us to kind of comment, and I'm going to turn it over to Gina Sherman to comment on these 2 points the committee made.
Okay, so the point concerning health insurance is a negotiated benefit. The piece that is negotiated is the percent of the premium that the employee pays and the percent of the premium that the district pays. This committee, it has always been our practice that the insurance committee in the spring either recommends premium changes or no premium changes, or recommends plan changes. That has always come in the spring and always been done outside of bargaining. Once again, the piece that is negotiations is that percent of the premium that is paid. The second bullet discusses the dedicated insurance fund. We did agree to investigate starting a dedicated insurance fund. We have discussed this. We are looking at doing this. The problem is when you put money into salary, you can't put it both places. We have to make hard decisions on, are we going to put money in an insurance fund? Are we going to put money in wages? Or are we going to put money elsewhere? So that is a part of the discussion as well.
All right. Thank you, Gina. Moving to the last slide. This just presents the timeline that we're currently under. So the reason that we're at a point where we need a board vote is twofold. First of all, Blue Cross Blue Shield requires a 45 to 60 day normal notice of any change in plan changes. That includes either medical or pharmacy. And again, our plan year starts June 1st. So that is the deadline we are under. And then secondly, the Affordable Care Act does require us to have an open enrollment window of about 30 days. And so that's something we want to get up and rolling by this Friday to give our staff ample time to get in there and make any changes or add coverage or delete coverage here in the next 4 weeks as they see fit, which of course will be more complicated this year considering we are not in our buildings at this point. So we will be more remotely working on that process, but looking forward to that. In conclusion, just to recap, before you tonight are 2 roll call voting items, option A and option B. Option A is the insurance committee recommendation and includes a 5% increase in premiums. The second option is the board requested fiscally conservative and more budget friendly option B, which consists of plan changes only and no increase in premiums. And that concludes my presentation. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I got one question. Option A that we'll have an opportunity to vote on, is that option A and C or just A?
That is that A and C for the presentation, yes.
Okay.
Okay, any others? Okay, thanks, Nate. Steve?
Wait,
Yes.
I think she just hit her mute, Ms. Johnson.
what are you have some more increases on the dental and I don't know if the vision has an increase on it or not. So give me a breakdown of what the total increase would be to an employee and an employee with dependents.
Absolutely. So the vision came back at a 0% increase. So there will be no change in the vision rates as you approve those here on the consent agenda. On the dental, we did get a renewal increase of 3.4%. The committee is recommending that we just renew for 1 year because the second year came back at 7.5% for the months 14 or months 13 through 24. That 3.4% increase on year 1 would increase the employee rate, which is the majority of our plan subscribers, 814 total, from $26.59 a month to $27.48. So about a 90-cent increase there. Employee spouse, about from 51.70 to 53.44. So it's about $1.74 increase. Employee and children rate will go from 57.43 to 59.36. And these are all in the high plan, by the way. So there's two different plans. These are high plan rates. That's an increase of about $2 per month. And then the family rate goes from 89.94 to 92.96. So that's about a $3 increase in the family rate. And then on the low plan, similar increases on the low plan rates across the board. So about 80-cent increase in the employee rate. Employee spouse is about $1.50 increase. Employee children is approximately $1.80 increase. And the family rate is about a $2.50 increase.
What about vision?
Vision is 0%. So all those rates will stay the same pending your approval.
Okay, anybody else?
And just to be clear, option B that we vote on is also going to be option B and D that were the district recommendations?
B and E, yes.
B and E?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else have anything else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to consent action items. Superintendent Gill.
President Zimmers and members of the board, I recommend approval of consent action items 8.2 through 8.5 as described in the corresponding resolutions.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Mathis,
Aye.
McFarland,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Ringer. Mr. Ringer. You're on mute, sir.
Aye, excuse me.
Thank you. Zimmers,
Aye.
Johnson,
I will vote, aye.
Mars.
Aye.
Okay, that is 7 aye votes.
Okay, moving on to roll call action items. 9.1, approval of personnel recommendations.
Mr. President, before you move on, can I
Yes.
just suggest that we get an insurance committee that includes some board members and maybe we look at other options besides self-funding? Put it out
Sure.
there.
Have we ever had board members on that committee before?
Yes, there have been. In my 20 years, there have been.
Oh, okay. Probably not a bad idea. So we have representation and we know what's going on as a board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
Are you volunteering?
No, I have enough on my plate. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Roll call action items.
Mrs. Sherman,
President Zimmers and members of the board, the superintendent recommends adoption of the personnel recommendations with one change. Letter A, classified, page 1, item 1, change in resignation date from end of day 5/29 to end of day 6/30, June 30th.
527, you mean?
End of day, I apologize, did I? 5/27 to 5, yeah, the person wants to resign June 30th.
Okay.
Moved.
There we go.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Ms. Sherman, can I ask a question?
Sure.
When we have anyone that's applying for position, especially someone who is, in the district currently, do we give any feedback with regards to their interview, or is it all on a case-by-case basis? If we have, someone moving, maybe looking at, an administrative position or going from, one administrative position to another administrative position, or, even teachers, looking to transfer from from one situation to another. I'm just wondering, is the district's policy or the individual school's policy to be able to give some feedback with regards to how the interview went and interview process and ways to improve and things like that?
Yeah, for the candidate, absolutely. Yes, they're allowed to give feedback. I mean, obviously, you have to be very careful to not compare them to other applicants, but give them.
But as the interviewer, are we giving, if they requested, can they get feedback?
Yes.
Yeah, that just happened. Actually, we're doing teacher voluntary transfer interviews right now. I had a principal reach out to me and say, is it okay that I give this person feedback? They're asking for it. And I said, absolutely.
Thank you.
I motion.
Well, can I, before Scott's motion, real quick, Gina
Yes.
and Superintendent, I want to know why there's so many people included in on interviews. If I'm going to work for you someplace else other than in a school district, I'm interviewing my own boss for administrative positions. I think that's wrong. Because that could lead to some favoritism and some other misinterpretations. I think that's a policy you need to consider changing, really.
Okay, that may be a discussion we need to have at another time.
It probably is, but I wanted to put it on the plate right now because it happens too much. I don't think teachers should be interviewing principals especially in their buildings.
I motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
We'll take a vote.
McFarland,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Ringer,
Aye.
Zimmers,
Aye.
Johnson,
Present.
Mars,
Aye.
Mathis.
Aye.
That is 6 aye votes and 1 present.
Okay, moving on to 9.2, resolution regarding renewal proposal for medical insurance option A premiums. And we have, okay, second. Do we have a second?
I'll make a second so we can vote on it.
Okay, all right. And I think we've had the opportunity to ask questions around this. So with that, we'll take a vote.
Miller,
Aye.
Ringer,
9.2 option A, no.
okay, Zimmers,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Mars,
No.
thank you. Mathis,
No.
McFarland.
Nay.
That is 6 no votes and 1 yes. Motion fails.
Okay, 9.3, approval of resolution regarding option B for insurance. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And once again, we've had discussion around this already, so we'll go ahead and take a vote.
Okay, just one moment, please. I'm catching up on the ESB.
That's fine.
Mr. McFarland, did you make the motion?
I did, and then I think Ms. Mathis seconded.
Yes, Ms.
Yeah.
Mathis. Thank you. Okay. I can move ahead. Ringer,
For 9.3, aye.
Zimmers,
Yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
Mars,
Aye.
Mathis,
Aye.
McFarland,
Aye.
Miller.
No.
Okay, that is 6 aye votes and 1 no. The motion carries.
Okay, moving on to, let's see, 9.4, approval of a resolution regarding special COVID-19 health insurance plans for the remainder of the year. And is this Mr. Fretz that's addressing this?
Yes, yes. President Zimmers, members of the board, the superintendent recommends adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, our health insurance carrier, has opened up elections for the district to opt in for certain benefit and plan enrollment options for those persons or families who may be impacted by COVID-19. And whereas district administration, in coordination with the SCA, believe it is in the best interest of the district to provide additional plan enrollment opportunities to those families in need, in addition to providing full plan coverage for all COVID-19 related treatment costs. And now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby approves and accepts the two special health insurance plan elections as presented for the months of April and May 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Should this not include, have been open-ended on the back end?
This is only for the final 2 months of the plan year.
The
Just
plan year
April and
ends May 31st?
That's correct.
Not,
That's the only option that Blue Cross has given us at this point. They may extend it, we just don't know yet.
So if someone has treatment going on that starts on May 25th and carries over into June, it stops at May 31st for this anyway. Is that what you're saying here?
It's a good question. Steve, can you answer that?
We don't really have any direction on that yet. That's one of the things that Blue Cross is currently talking about. That is, to your point, treatment after May 31st, as well as anyone that had treatment that happened before April 1st that carried into the other months, if that's an exception that can be made. So when we have further information from Blue Cross, we'll pass that on. As of now, from my interpretation, it would end, but I think that's something that we can talk with Blue Cross and see where they make their decisions on plan administration.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Zimmers,
Yes.
Johnson,
it's a bad option, but I'm gonna vote yes. But I hope they get it straightened out. Steve?
Mars,
Aye.
Mathis,
Aye.
McFarland,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Ringer.
Aye.
That is 7 aye votes.
9.5, emergency resolution, suspending board policies and adopting the temporary remote learning plan. Superintendent Gill.
President Zimmers and members of the board, I recommend the following resolution. Whereas on March 13th, the governor of the state of Illinois issued executive orders numbers 2020-05 and 2020-06, closing public and private schools through March 31st of 2020. And whereas on April 1st, the governor issued an executive order 2020-18, which in part extended executive orders 05 and 06 and closed Illinois schools through through April 30th, 2020, and now through the end of the year as of last Friday. The Illinois State Board of Education has issued emergency regulations and guidance regarding remote learning. And the Board of Education believes it is in the best interest of districts, students, and families to temporarily suspend board policies 65.03, academic achievement, reporting student progress, 65.04, academic achievement grading system, and 65.06, academic achievement promotion and retention, as well as 705.6, which regards student attendance, and any other board policies that conflict with remote learning planning, and to adopt the remote learning plan during the state of Illinois school shutdown outlined in the governor's executive orders and any further extensions thereto. Now, therefore, based on the findings above, the Board of Education adopts the following: board policies 65.03, 65.04, 65.06, 705.06, and any other board policies that conflict with the remote learning plan are temporarily suspended during the period outlined in the governor's 05, 06, and 18 executive orders, and during any period of extension identified in subsequent executive orders. Number 2, on a temporary basis, the board adopts and shall enforce the remote learning plan. And number 3, board policies 65.03, 04, 06, And 705.06 shall be readopted upon the board decision to vacate this resolution by a vote of the majority of a quorum of board members.
So moved.
I have a second. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Johnson,
I'm going to vote yes, although I don't think this is the right way to do it.
Mars,
Aye.
Mathis,
Aye.
McFarland,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Ringer,
Aye.
Zimmers.
Aye.
That is 7 aye votes.
Okay, before we end here, do we have anybody sign up to speak this evening?
I think we do have one. Just one moment, please, Mr. Zimmers.
Okay.
Mr. Aaron Graves from the SEA did sign up to talk. We're waiting for him to join the meeting.
Okay.
I have a question in the meantime.
Yes, sir.
I want to know what tropical paradise Cherie is at and why she did not invite the rest of us.
I don't know. It's windy day there, though.
Weather looks beautiful.
Place none of us can get to right now. I just was reading an article when I woke up this morning about the last cruise ship is in port now. There's no cruise ships with passengers anywhere to be found.
There's no escape.
No escape.
But at least Zoom stocks are up.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because they, when they boarded, this wasn't even COVID was just a very small outbreak in Wuhan province. And when they returned, it was like one of those all around the world cruises.
Mm.
And they couldn't even find a port of call. They kept getting turned away.
Do we know if he's made a connection yet? Julie, do we know what this is a connection with?
Or it's insurance.
Mr. Zimmers, it's related to the insurance.
Okay,
Can he just talk on the phone and you hold it up to the mic? I did that this morning and it worked just fine.
I can do that. Okay. And I'll just hold it up I'm going to put you on speaker and put it up to my computer. I will let you know once the 3 minutes is up. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Hold on just 1 minute. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Graves.
Hello, Board of Education and Superintendent and Springfield at large. While SEA appreciates your contemplation over the vote over the health insurance, I want it on record that we and also SEIU and the Ball Charter Education Association are very disappointed that you would move against the recommendation that we worked very carefully through. We think that voting against the recommendation of the employees of the district at large is not the best move. And again, we're very disappointed that that's the direction you chose. We think the direction that you chose in option B is not the best option for families, for singles, for kids, and not much we can do at this point since you've already voted on it, but we want you to understand our discontent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any board members have anything else before we adjourn?
Just to make a comment on that, the main reason why I supported option A was because that was a recommendation from the insurance committee. So I just want to read that into the record, that I don't understand the point of an insurance committee if we don't take the recommendations to heart.
Understand.
Anyone else?
Thank you for your input.
I would also just point out that comments such as that should be during the agenda item, so we can discuss it during the agenda item.
Right. Okay, does anybody else have anything else? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, everyone. And our next scheduled meeting will be Monday, May the 4th at 5:30. And we'll do this remotely again. So everybody have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
Later.